My parents turned my childhood into a prison. Because of one bad grade, I never thought one piece of paper could destroy a childhood. Mine did. I was 13 when I brought home my first C. Just one. That's all it took. Most parents would have been annoyed for a day and moved on. Mine acted like I'd committed a crime. My dad didn't yell. Honestly, I almost wish he had. Instead, he folded the report card in half, set it down on the dining table, looked me dead in the eyes, and said, "Your life belongs to us until your grades are perfect." I thought it was just a scary thing parents say. I didn't realize he meant it literally. The next morning, my bedroom door was gone. Not broken. Removed. I was shocked. I found it leaning against the garage wall like it was waiting for a repair that was never coming. I actually laughed at first, thought my dad was fixing something. Then my mom smiled at me and said, "No privacy for failures." And that was that. New rule. My room stayed open around the clock after that. I couldn't change clothes without someone walking by. Couldn't cry without getting asked why. I used to cry sitting on roof at night. Couldn't even fall asleep without hearing footsteps pause outside my door. I think that was the point. They wanted me to feel watched all the time. Then the phone went, then the laptop, then my book. And I don't mean textbooks, I mean actual storybook. Because apparently reading for fun was a distraction. TV, gone. Music, forbidden. Friends. Well, my parents started answering my texts for me. "I'm busy studying," they'd write back, pretending to be me. Eventually, people just stopped asking. That made things even worse. My whole world shrank down to 4 places: school, home, the dining table, my bed. That was it. Every weekday was the same. Up at 5, study until breakfast. School, home, eat in silence, study until midnight, sleep, repeat. And if my grades weren't climbing fast enough, my dad would come up with something new. One week, I wasn't allowed to sit unless I was eating. He said it built discipline. Another week, I had to copy an entire math textbook by hand because I'd missed 3 questions on a quiz. Took me almost 40 hours. When I finally finished, he flipped through it for maybe 5 seconds and tossed the whole thing in the fireplace. "You'll remember it better if you do it again," he said. I watched hundreds of pages burn. Something in me burned with them. Honestly, the punishments weren't even the worst part. The worst part was how normal it all started to feel. After a while, I stopped asking myself if it was cruel and started asking myself if I deserved it. That's the thing. Nobody tells you about being controlled like that. Eventually, you start believing their version of you. Lazy, disappointing, broken. Teachers noticed. Dark circles, constant headaches, falling asleep at my desk. When they'd ask if I was okay, I had the answer memorized. "I'm just studying a lot." That's what I was trained to say. Family stuff stays in the family. Then one Friday, my best friend Ethan caught me after school and asked why I kept disappearing. Said he'd invited me to 6 birthdays that year and I never showed up, never even answered. I wanted so badly to just tell him everything. Instead, I gave him the script. "My parents just want me focused." He nodded and then said something that stuck with me for weeks. "You don't look focused, you look scared." I laughed it off in the moment, but that word wouldn't leave me alone. Scared. Was I scared? Yeah. Terrified, actually. Not because they'd ever hit me, they almost never did. I've learned fear doesn't always come with bruises. Sometimes it's just knowing that every mistake is going to cost you another piece of your life. Every day of my life felt like a burden at that time. Like I was living, but not alive within at the same time. Then came the science exam. I studied harder for that thing than I'd ever studied for anything. Every chapter, every diagram, every formula, memorized. I walked in feeling, for once, like I was finally going to get out from under this. 2 weeks later, the results came back. The report card, I was gobsmacked. 94%. Best score I'd ever gotten in my life. I was smiling the whole walk home. My dad looked at the paper for a second, then asked, "What happened to the other 6%? My eyes became so big and I genuinely thought he was joking. He wasn't. Grounded for another month because someone else in my class had gotten 100. I cried so hard that night I could barely breathe. Not because of the punishment, because I finally understood there was never going to be a score high enough. The goalpost would always move. No matter what I did, I was always going to be failing. That was the night I stopped trying to earn their approval and just started trying to survive it. I even thought of leaving my family forever. Over the next year, my anxiety got bad. Like throwing up before school, every Sunday bad. Not because I hated school, because report cards existed. I fainted in chemistry class once. The nurse checked my blood pressure and asked if I'd been eating, sleeping, feeling safe at home. I said yes to all of it. Kids protect their parents way more often than parents protect their kid. Nobody talks about that enough. Then something shifted. Our English teacher gave us an assignment. Write a personal essay on what home means to you. Everyone else wrote about family dinners and comfort and all that. I sat there staring at a blank page for 20 minutes. Then I just started writing. Not for the grade. For me. Every punishment. Every insult. Every night I couldn't sleep. Every expectation I could never quite meet. I didn't even notice I was crying until the bell rang. I wrote my frustration invigorated within me. For years, I handed it in without rereading a word. The next day, my teacher asked me to stay after class. I figured I'd failed the assignment. Instead, she shut the door quietly, put my essay on the desk in front of me. There were tear stains on it, and they weren't mine, and said, "This isn't normal." 4 words. They wrecked me, because for years, I genuinely believed it was. She didn't push, didn't interrogate, just asked one simple question. "Do you feel safe going home today?" I couldn't answer her. I just cried. The kind of crying where you can't stop it even if you want to. After that, everything moved fast. The school counselor got involved, then social services, then relatives I hadn't talked to in years were suddenly calling. My parents kept saying everyone was overreacting, that they were just strict because they cared, that they were preparing me for success, but their story kept shifting depending on who was in the room. Mine never did. The truth doesn't need rehearsal. I stayed with my aunt for a few months after that. First night there, she knocked before coming into my room. Actually knocked. I froze. She looked confused and just said, "Can I come in?" Nobody had asked permission to enter my room in years. I broke down crying again. She just hugged me, didn't say a word. That one knock did something to me I still can't fully explain. Recovery wasn't quick or clean. For months, I'd panic over anything below a 90. I'd apologize for for eating a snack, asked permission to use the bathroom. I couldn't relax even when nobody was around to watch me. Turns out, trauma doesn't stay behind at the house you left. It follows you, quietly, waiting for some completely normal moment to remind you it's still there. College was my real reset. I picked my own classes for the first time, made my own friends, closed my own door. Sounds small, I know, but every night before bed, I'd lock that door just because I could. That little click meant more to me than almost anything. Years later, my dad called out of nowhere, said he wanted to meet, that enough time had passed. Curiosity got the better of me, so I said yes. We met at some small cafe. He looked older, smaller than I remembered. After some painfully awkward small talk, he finally said it. Everything we did was for your future. I looked at him for a long time before I said anything back. Then I asked, if it was love, why was I so afraid of you? He didn't answer. Couldn't. There isn't one. Parents are supposed to push you toward effort, not terror. Home is supposed to be the safest place you know, not something you spend years recovering from. We finished our coffee without saying much else. That was the last time I saw him. I'm 28 now. I've got a career I actually love, friends who feel like family, and a home where messing up is allowed. Sometimes I still catch myself apologizing for things that were never my fault. Healing isn't a straight line, but every year it gets a little easier, and that scared 13-year-old kid feels a little further behind me. If anyone's ever told you that fear and love are the same thing, they're not. Love teaches, fear controls, love protects, fear destroys, and no report card, no matter how bad, should ever cost a kid their childhood.